Traces, like logs, are specific events that have happened in a system, but unlike logs, they are only related to the interconnected conversation between different services. So where logs can be anything could happen in the system at any time, traces specifically track the exchanges between different services in your system, or exchanges that have happened inside a particular system, for example, from one module to another module. So you can have normal tracing, which is internal to a particular application, and distributed tracing, which is between different applications that communicate over a network. So how does that look? This is the Coralogix Tracing Explore screen. In subsequent videos, we will explore more details about everything that's going on in this screen. But for now, we'll just explore the concept of traces. So all traces typically have a breakdown of every individual transaction within that trace. And this is called a span. Now, you can see here that each of these traces have like 57 spans, 49 spans, and so on. So if I click on this particular trace, this is going to be a breakdown of all of the different spans within this trace. So, for example, a communication from this HTTP post to this cart service here, this is a particular span that's all been chained together into a full trace. Now, each span has a breakdown of latency and how long everything took, things like HTTP status codes if it's relevant, and so on. But it's almost always the case that spans have a duration or a latency. And what this enables you to do is to view the different lengths of time it takes for different components in your system to communicate, as well as highlight specific bottlenecks in your system. So, for example, we can see here that this request took a very, very long time, and this one, and as subsequently these requests were actually quite slow as well. But this particular exchange here is really where the lion's share of the processing happened. So you can see here that actually, if you want to speed up the whole process, you can actually have a look at the get supported currencies endpoint to understand what's going on there. Again, really, really powerful for breaking down and understanding the interconnected relationships between your system. And of course, when you do all of this, you can build views based on this data as well, so you can actually see which system depends on which other system. Hence this dependency view here, you can see every single communication. You can even see breakdowns of things like specific database queries. This is, for example, a Redis statement for a get query for a particular IP address, a particular ID, and all of this adds up to make a really nice, very detailed, very crisp picture. Now, traces can also be correlated with your metrics as well and your logs. So, for example, we can see here that if we open up the pod metrics, these are a breakdown of the actual Kubernetes pod that was happening at the same time, and this is the actual server, the host on which that pod was hosted. So what you can do here is you can break down everything from which systems were talking to which, the duration, any errors that were happening, any irregular status codes, and then you can actually correlate in Coralogix with relevant metrics. So this is a breakdown and introduction of traces. Very commonly, your traces will be provided. You'll hear phrases like Jaeger and Zipkin and things like that. In Coralogix, we have our own tracing solution, but it works perfectly with OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry being pretty much the standard way. And in subsequent tutorials, we'll be using OpenTelemetry to connect many different types of systems like serverless and Kubernetes with the Coralogix system.